Hey y'all, Bungie dropped a huge article today going over major sandbox changes for the final shape. Here is my live read through and reaction. Hope you enjoy. Okay, Dev Insights, the final shape abilities tuning preview. Hey folks, combat gameplay team here for a rundown of ability changes coming with the launch of the final shape in just a few short weeks. As a warning, this is one of our largest balance patches in recent years. Damn. So you may want to settle in for a long read. Here's a brief overview of what we'll be covering today. Updates to a large portion of the Stasis ability suite, including our new keyword, Frost Armor. The near future of Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn in the final shape. Can't wait. I feel like we all knew that was coming, right? Subclass by subclass breakdown of balance changes to abilities, aspects, and fragments, including, but not limited to, those included with Prismatic. Okay. Stasis. Let's start with Stasis. Shortly after the release of Stasis, we shifted focus to the back-to-back launch of the Bungie 30th Anniversary Pack and Void 3.0. And we haven't really let up on the gas since. As a result, other than smaller changes we've been able to make here and there, it's been difficult to evaluate the relationship between Stasis and our other damage types and make larger feature-level updates to it. This was something we wanted to change with the final shape. In particular, we wanted to upgrade the Stasis Shard Overshield that lived on the fringes of the damage type to make it a full-on keyword that we could incorporate into abilities, armor, or weapon perks. Frost Armor is a stacking buff that reduces incoming damage with greater damage reduction as your stacks increase. At launch, Frost Armor will be granted from a variety of sources, including the Tectonic Grim Glacial Harvest aspects, fragments, and exotic armor. By default, you can build to a maximum number of 5 stacks of Armor Frost for 9 seconds. But with the newly reworked Whisper of Rime fragment, Frost Armor's maximum lifetime increases to 13 seconds and can build to a maximum of 8 stacks. Okay. Unlike the Stasis Shard Overshield, Frost Armor remains active when your super is cast. Oh lord. Though its effectiveness is significantly lower while your super is active. Okay. Okay, Maggie, I'm already lost. This is only part 1. Okay, we got the new Frost keyword. You are fortified by layers of durable stasis matter, reducing incoming damage. Frost Armor damage resistance grows stronger as you gain additional stacks. Reduces damage from PvE combatants by 4.5% per stack, and from enemy players by 2% per stack. Okay, so that's not bad. I would really like to build into that for a PvE build. That sounds pretty good. Whisper of Rime reworked. No longer grants a Stasis Shard Overshield when collecting a Stasis Shard. Now increases the maximum duration and stack count of Frost Armor. Okay, understood. One long-standing piece of feedback we've received is that Stasis Shards felt too limited, requiring a specific aspect to generate. Because Stasis Shards are created for all allied players at once, rather than being a shared consumed resource like a Tangle or a local-only resource like a Fire Sprite, Ionic Traces, or Void Breaches, it would be easy for number of Stasis Shards on the field to spiral out of control if we were to make their creation intrinsic to the damage type. Instead, we're increasing the number of sources that players can build into to generate them. More on this shortly, and increasing their value when collected with a Harvest aspect equipped. When Tectonic, Grim, or Glacial Harvest is equipped, in addition to their previous behavior, collecting any Stasis Shard now grants a small amount of health and a stack of Frost Armor. Okay, they're really building into the Frost Armor thing here. Alongside this increased potency, we're also implementing a shared cooldown on rapid Stasis Shard creation. Okay, this cooldown is intended to be pretty generous and primarily limits cases of oppressive behavior. Good, like triple behemoth trial squads. They're not beating around the bush, are they? Fuck people who play like that, by the way. All right, all Harvest aspects. Added new behavior. While Grim, Tectonic, or Glacial Harvest is equipped, Stasis Shards grant a small amount of health and a stack of Frost Armor. Large Stasis Shards from Grim Harvest grant more health and Frost Armor stacks. Okay. All Harvest aspects now have a standardized cooldown when a large number of shards are created very quickly. Okay, not giving exact numbers, that's okay. Tectonic Harvest now creates a Stasis Shard when shattering a frozen target, in addition to shattering stasis crystals. Okay. Our intention is that Frost Armor can be granted through a variety of sources. As part of this, we've updated Renewal Grasp and Ballador's Wrathweavers to directly grant frost armor. Really interesting, rather than their own custom damage resist or stasis shard overshield. Renewal Grasp replaced generic damage resist with frost armor. Wow, okay. On entering your Duskfield grenade volume, you or your allies gain a stack of frost armor. About every 0.9 seconds when in the volume, an additional frost armor stack is granted, resetting your timer. That might be pretty good. I may have to check in with a couple of PvP homies. Can someone check on Frostbolt right now? He might be reading this like, no. Ballador's Wrathweavers replaced Stasis Shard Overshield with Frost Armor when you activate your Rift or use your Winter's Wrath Shatter attack. Okay, this is all very interesting. Fangs, this is interesting stuff. I'm excited for PvE, worried for PvP. No, ¿por qué? Love Frostbolt. To help increase players' capabilities to generate Stasis Shards, we've created a brand new fragment, that offers a straightforward method that can slot into many different build types. Whisper of Chill. Insert picture of pure chill here. Whisper of Chill. Stasis weapon final blows have a chance to create a Stasis Shard. Okay, that could be pretty tight. Especially, that'll be great for PvE. Yeah, that's huge. Okay, I dig that. As part of this effort, we've also reworked Whisper of Chains. Ooh, okay, that is the DR one. This fragment has been a popular choice since inception due to its ease of use and stat bonus. However, its gameplay benefit was frequently difficult to read and ran counter to core gameplay loops revolving around creating and destroying crystals and the core human compulsion to destroy every crystal you see. I think that's Whisper of Chains. Hard to keep them all in your head. To make Whisper of Chains fully successful, it required cooperation from teammates in a way that sometimes took success out of the user's hands. This resulted in situations where, by shattering a stasis crystal for damage, players could unknowingly reduce their or their teammates' combat effectiveness. Very true. This introduced negative social friction, which is fancy PR talk for, why the fuck did you do that, asshole? I'm running a build. That we wanted to remove outright. We've pivoted Whisper of Chains to instead focus on chaining creation of Stasis Shard and Frost Armor when paired with a Harvest aspect. Got it. Okay, got it. Whisper of Chains no longer grants passive damage resistance when near a Stasis Crystal or frozen target. Okay, that was the one that I had in mind, yeah. Now grants a chance to create a Stasis Shard when defeating a target while you have one or more stacks of Frost Armor. Okay. These are interesting changes. Next on our list of Frost Armor fragment reworks is Whisper of Fractures, with Stasis Shards granting melee energy as a base behavior. Relying on a difficult-to-read passive melee energy regeneration bonus felt like a place we could reduce overlap and build in support for the new keyword. Whisper of Fractures no longer increases melee energy regeneration when surrounded by enemies. Now grants a stack of Frost Armor when you shatter any frozen target with a melee attack. Okay. Man, they're really building into the Frost Armor. Our final fragment rework is Whisper of Torment. This fragment is a sleeper pick that does its job well, but its actual output has too many variables to keep track of and require the player to be at critical health for its largest bonus. So we're simplifying things a bit. Yeah, Torment is get grenade energy for the more damage you take, I think, right? Trying to remember. Grenade energy gains are no longer dependent on your current health value. Base grenade energy regeneration amount per incoming damage event increased from 5 to 7%. While you have Frost Armor, energy per damage event increases from 7 to 12. That's very interesting. Finally, we've created one more brand new Stasis fragment. Ayo, 2 new fragments today. Whisper of Reversal is a close combat tool of our Frost Armor users, adding chances for additional crowd control if you're willing to take the risk. Whisper of Reversal. While you have Frost Armor, dealing or receiving physical melee, i.e. not projectile melee, damage slows your victim or attacker. Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about that one for a minute. Okay. That might be really fun for PvP. Trying to think of all applications, but we'll keep reading. Okay, let's talk about Shatter. While we want the focus of Stasis to be primarily in high-value crowd control abilities, in the current sandbox, shattering a frozen target doesn't always result in the payout, oh boy, that other damage types are able to deliver with their capstone keywords. All right, let's be careful here, Bungie. Especially in high difficulty activities, misjudging your ability to capitalize on a freeze can lead to dire consequences. To help address this, we're bumping base shatter damage versus PvE combatants. PvE only. Okay, let's fucking go. Oh my god, let's fucking go. Okay, I was worried about PvP. From 200 to 400. Note, this does not affect stasis crystal detonations, but simultaneously, we're fixing an issue where boss combatants received double damage from auto shattering, so we don't quadruple the shatter damage. Okay, shatter. Increased PvE shatter damage from 200 to 400. Let's fucking go. Fix an issue where bosses auto shattering were being hit by 2 instances of shatter damage. Fixed an issue where players in an active super would show immune damage flyouts when automatically breaking of stasis freeze. Okay, this is interesting. With those changes, building into frost armor for incoming DR and more shatter damage in PvE, I might make a couple of day 1 stasis builds for the raid. Like before you get to a boss encounter, when you're not worried about damage check, like just staying alive, like doing a relay race or activate some kind of bullshit totem or whatever. That might be fun. I'm kind of looking forward to that. Okay, that's it for our general stasis updates. In addition to these changes, we made a number of updates to subclass-specific stasis abilities. Why don't we go through them class by class? Okay. Warlock up front. We believe that Shadebinders are largely in good shape. Ooh, a lot of PvP players not going to be happy about that comment. Relative to our other stasis subclasses. Therefore, we've limited our focus here. We've added a small boost to Ice Flare Bolt's ability to lock down rooms over the course of a combat encounter before going on cooldown. Ice Flare Bolts increased maximum number of Seekers created before going on cooldown from 5 to 7. If you listen really carefully, chat, you can hear Stadia Time like fucking lighting up a cigar. It's just fucking let's go. That's interesting. Yeah, Shadebinders are really good in PvP, but okay, untouched. That's fine. Hunter, why don't we talk about Revenant? With Winter's Shroud included in the Prismatic Hunter kit, we knew we needed to increase viability in high difficulty content where getting up close and personal gets much riskier. We also wanted to start a car engine outside my window during the live record and provide a smoother gameplay loop between Winter's Shroud and other Revenant abilities. We've updated Winter's Shroud to provide a moderate boost to class ability regeneration when you slow a target from any source and added a brief window of damage reduction from PvE combatants when activated. Okay. Winter's Shroud added new behavior. Slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration rate. Okay. Bonus is reduced in PvP. Thumbs up. Now grants PvE damage reduction when activated. Okay. All right. That's fine. As long as the bonus is not wild in PvP, I'm okay with that. Touch of Winter has been widely used by our Stasis Hunter players since introduction in Season of the Splicer, primarily when paired with Duskfield grenades for high uptime, zone denial, or glacier grenade for shatter dive combos. The latter has struggled in PvE content in recent seasons as the sandbox has matured, so we're making a targeted change to increase its PvE potency without returning to an era of the Crucible where you had to fear rounding any corner into a barrage of ice. Good. In addition, Touch of Winter's Cold Snap Grenade upgrade has been widely underused. Oh boy. So we're implementing a larger rework to its functionality. Okay. Touch of Winter Glacier Grenade added an additional stasis crystal to the ring formation, increasing total count from 6 to 7. Glacier Grenade ring now forms over 0.27 seconds rather than instantly. Oh my god, yeah, Maggie, that Dado command. I literally immediately thought of the Dado Shatter Dive command. every fucking hunter. Okay, as long as they've tested this in PvP, and we don't return to the era of Dado Rage Shatter Dive PvP, I think we'll be okay. Cold Snap. No longer chains an additional time when Touch of Winter is equipped. Instead, Seekers now duplicate when they freeze a target. Oh shit. Second and third Seeker chains now create a medium and large stasis crystal rather than every chain creating a small one. Interesting. Okay. That might be a thing. That might be a thing. While Silence and Squall are still effective at locking down rooms full of enemies, we've done a small touch-up on its ability to roam the battlefield and how quickly it converts from a slow to a freeze on PvE combatants. We think this will increase viability in target-rich environments. I love that phrase. I don't know why. Target-rich environment. Silence and Squall. Increased Squall maximum travel speed by 10%. Okay, not huge, but not bad. Squall Storm now slows down when any target is within its area of effect to reduce instances where it could overshoot the target. Okay. Interesting. Increased damage and slow tick rate versus PvE combatants by 40%, bringing freeze time from approximately 0.8 seconds to 0.5. Okay, bet. All right. I'm good with that. Titan. For our Behemoth players, we're making several quality of life improvements. Oh boy. We are making Shiver Strike and Glacial Quake more reliable, improving the ease of use of Diamond Lances to fit into the cadence of combat on the Prismatic Titan, and tweaking Cryoclasm to be more intuitive. Shiver Strike, great ability, is a melee ability with a higher barrier to entry than most of our roster. I do hear from controller players that it's hard to use. And while that it is intended at a high level, there are instances where it can misread the player's intent and fail to find a target as a result. To help mitigate this, we are increasing its ability to find and lunge towards targets in its now larger search area and are increasing damage versus PvE targets. These changes also affect the Glacial Quake light attack. In addition, Glacial Quake will now auto-sprint when the player starts moving forward. So no more awkwardly bashing your face into a crystal you were meaning to shatter after performing a heavy slam. Interesting. Shiver Strike. Increased damage versus PvE combatants by 10%. Excuse me. Increased size of melee target search area cone by 50%. Wow. Increased maximum lunge tracking angular speed from 7 degrees per second to 21 degrees per second. The fuck does that mean? Increased maximum lunge tracking angular speed. TLDR better tracking. Glacial Quake now automatically begins sprinting when the player throttles forward. Okay. I mean, those are good changes if you're a fucking behemoth. We've had a number of iterations on Cryoclasm since initial release in Beyond Light, with current version requiring a sprint windup to activate. While this solved the behemoth mobility balance issue at the time, it resulted in a state where it can be easy to mistime your slide just before Cryoclasm is ready to activate. To address this, we're returning to a middle ground between Cryoclasm's original release and now. We're removing the sprinting requirement, but implementing a cooldown after a single extended slide. Ah, I see. Removed sprint time requirement. Cryo now goes on cooldown for 4 seconds after one extended slide. Okay, that makes sense. I don't play a shit ton of Behemoth, so I can't immediately comment on whether that would be a good or bad change if you're a Behemoth main. It makes sense. For Diamond Lance, we're making a couple of quality of life changes to help make it easier to pick up on the battlefield and are generally improving its ease of use by increasing the size of its thrown projectile detonation versus all targets and its slam attack versus PvE combatants. Increased thrown Diamond Lance detonation radius from 3.5 to 5 meters. Okay. Increased Diamond Lance slam detonation radius from 6.75 to 8 meters versus PvE. Okay, good. Diamond Lance now shatters stasis crystals on direct impact. Reduced Diamond Lance pickup interaction time from 0.2 to 0.1 seconds, matching a Strand Tangle. Increased Diamond Lance pickup interaction radius from 0.7 meters to 3 meters. Wow, matching Tangles. Damn. That is interesting. I think that, I mean, I'm not a huge Diamond Lance guy, but sorry, reading a DM. I'm not really a Diamond Lance guy, but it seems like Bungie wants to incorporate it more into Prismatic as part of the Titan Prismatic kit, which I think will be interesting. Maybe these changes will actually make me care about Diamond Lance. So I'm interested in that. Interested in that at the very least. Well of Radiance and Word of Dawn. Oh, shit. Chat, can we get a here we go? Let's get a couple of here we goes in the chat. Meaning, this is about to get wild. Probably about to get wild. That's a cool picture, though. This is going to be the Datto thumbnail with text on it, or I fucking don't even know. Or I don't even know what I'll do. I don't even know. I will bet any amount of money. That picture right there. Datto's YouTube thumbnail with the Datto font on it. You know what I'm talking about. you know the font. Okay, here we go. Back in November, we briefly touched on Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn and how we were evaluating their place in the sandbox. With the launch of the final shape, we're making larger changes to both of these supers to push them into more distinct identities and to reduce the fire and forget nature of Well. Well of Radiance's core fantasy has always been a supercharged, healing, empowering Rift combo, offering a rally point for your fire team during moments of focus. In its current form, its healing and damage resist offer effective invulnerability, pretty much, which removes any other defensive option from consideration on top of providing a sizable boost to your fire team's offensive output. We've chosen to push Well of Radiance further towards the offensive capability, okay, by allowing Radiance to persist for a short duration after players leave the well. Okay. We're also pulling back on its defensive output, both damage resist and healing rate, by a significant margin. Interesting. Let's read the changes here. Well of Radiance. Don't want to scroll down too far. Now grants Radiant for 8 seconds when players exit the well. But do you get the damage when you're in the well? Reduced player survivability when standing in the well aura. Reduced healing per second from 100 to 50 health, matching restoration times 2. Okay. Increased heal on cast from 40 to 300. Oh man, that makes it a much more oh shit play. Reduced damage resist versus non-boss combatants from 40 to 20. Wow. Reduced damage resist versus boss combatants from 40 to 10. Man, okay. Damage resist versus enemy players unchanged. Increased maximum orbs of power from defeating targets while in your Well of Radiance aura from 4 to 5. Let me think about this for a minute. Okay, this is going to change things significantly. So wow, the defensive options are really getting cut down. So we're going from 100 health per second to 50. We're losing DR on regular enemies in PvE from 40 to 20%. Boss DR going down from 40 to 10%. So the new play, I don't think Well is going to be completely 100% dead, but it's significantly going to change how it works. Here's the most interesting part right here. Gives Radiant for 8 seconds when players exit the well. So the thought on that is, not a lot of people know this if you're not a super number follower. Radiant is the same damage buff number as standing in a well. They're both 25% last I checked. So in theory, if you're not getting a ton of extra damage, I wonder if there's a reset timer. Like if I go in the well and go out, in, out, in, out, every time I leave, I get an 8-second Radiant timer. In theory, I could be going in and out of the well nonstop, and you're not losing the damage output, because if you're in the well, 25%. You leave the well, you get Radiant, still 25%. So in theory, you could do, Radiant is not 10%. No, Radiant is not 10%. PvE, I can double check the number. Radiant is 25%. So in theory, you're going, Well of Radiance doesn't give a 50%. You think Well of Radiance gives a 50% damage buff? That number is not correct. I am 99% sure that they are literally both 25%. Radiant in PvP is different. It's either 10 or 15%. We're talking about, you tested this last night. I guarantee you it's incorrect. I guarantee you your testing is wrong. It is 25% in PvE in the well. I will literally bet $1,000 that you are incorrect. This is not throwing shade. There, you think it's 50%? Moving on. So if you're getting 25% in the well and out of the well, you can use Well of Radiance kind of like as a drop the well. You get the weapon damage buff. Now, rather than needing to huddle in the well, you can kind of move around and still get the damage buff. You can move around and still get the damage buff. Oh, we're not talking about DR. We're talking about offensive damage output. I'm sorry. Let me be clear. We're talking about weapon buff damage is what we're talking about. That is what I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about DR. Well is 25%. Radiant and PvE is 25%. So you can use Well as drop it, get the weapon damage buff, and if you need health, go into the well, but you can still keep kind of rotating and circling around. So you can get the damage buff when you're not in the well, thanks to that change of getting Radiant when you leave the well. So that is very interesting. I think this is going to make players need to pay attention more during damage phase, because you can't just huddle in the well, get a shit ton of health, you know, take no damage from the boss, yada, yada. You might need to be moving around more. Court, thank you so much. Well is 25 PvE. Well, okay, perfect. Court here to verify that the numbers I'm quoting are correct. Okay. This is a very, very interesting change. Again, I don't think this will be the, quote, death of Well. I think that players are going to need to pay attention and focus more in endgame PvE content. Certainly a number of DPS phases on raid bosses may change, for sure. I'll have to think about that more. Salta Greppo is probably very happy with this change, because I think a lot of people rely too much on the strength of Well. Man, maybe Banner Titans are about to rise up. All the Banner Titans in chat, rise up. Rise the fuck up. Your time may have come now, finally. Again, I don't think it's the death of Well. I do think that is a significant black eye to Well, though. Interesting. Let's move on to Ward of Dawn real quick. Ward of Dawn, on the other hand, is meant to be a highly defensible safe haven for you and your team. In practice, our combat encounters don't have a lot of opportunities for this type of gameplay to shine, so we're making a change to allow Ward of Dawn to provide defensive capability while fighting around the dome, not just in it. We're also reworking Armor of Light, ooh, interesting, to make your current health state while in the dome of Ward of Dawn more understandable. And we're pushing Ward of Dawn away from its current offensive capability, unless you specifically build into it. Okay. Ward of Dawn, Armor of Light. Removed Armor of Light Overshield. Ward of Dawn now immediately applies a full Void Overshield to the caster and allies that enter the dome. Okay. Interesting. Armor of Light now instead grants additional damage resist to players inside the Ward of Dawn. 30% versus enemy players and 60% versus enemy combatants. Let me keep reading before I react. Effective health of players inside the Ward of Dawn dome remains roughly the same as it was before PvE versus PvE combatants. Okay. Effective health of players inside Ward of Dawn is significantly lower than it was before versus other players in PvP, and cannot be further increased by stacking Bastion barricades inside the ward to gain additional overshield layers. Little golf clap there. Not going to react yet. I'm going to keep reading. Allies near the Ward of Dawn dome now have... near the Ward of Dawn now have Void Overshield trickled on over time, similar to the volume behind a Bastion barricade. Interesting. So just standing near a bubble. Okay. No longer provides weapons of light by default. Ooh. Significant. That is significant. This behavior has been moved to the benefits of Helm of Saint 14. They're giving you weapons of light in the bubble only if you equip the Helm of Saint 14. That is a significant change. Okay. The Ward of Dawncaster can now generate additional orbs of power by defeating enemies with melee attacks in or near their Ward of Dawn dome. Let me think about this for a minute. Sheesh. This is like very significant. This is more significant than the well change. Removing the offensive capabilities is a lot. A lot. Good Lord. Okay, so it seems like it's making it more beefy against PvE enemies and easier to understand how it effectively works with the Overshield and Armor of Light. I like the change for PvP. I really like the change for PvP. Very much. I wish they would give us exact numbers. But yeah, this is a hard hit to Ward of Dawn. This is a hard hit. Very, very hard. The loss of Weapons of Light is big. I don't know what situations you would want to use a bubble for now in PvE. I genuinely don't know. There might still be some, depending on how good it is as its role as being like a defensive protective option. Remember back in D1, the original Crota raid, where it was like, oh, we're getting shot at by boomers from the balcony, and like we need very specific, combination to survive that attack because the boomers be hitting mad hard. People would like put a bubble between the boomer tower and like the Crota area where we stand. That's like one example where it may still be viable. This is pretty fucking harsh, dude. No note on the timer though, so it still might be popular in trials and PvP. It depends on how much. They're not giving us a lot of numbers here. We can find out relatively quickly how easy it would be to kill a Titan in their bubble in PvP. If it's significantly easier, bubble may come off the table a little bit more. If it's like barely easier to kill a Titan in PvP in their bubble, then it'll still be meta for sure. It'll absolutely still be meta, but we'll see. For PvE though, I think this is a significant black eye for PvE. Again, I wouldn't call it dead. There are definitely situations where it would come in handy, but sheesh. Yeah, the Weapons of Light change is big. I'm going to keep reading. Additionally, we've seen that supers above and burst damage supers in the same tier have increasingly dominated in the Crucible landscape due to their uptime. Oh shit, maybe I spoke too soon. While we do want to maintain some texture across a match where supers become available, the delta is currently a bit too high, especially in 3v3. To reduce this a bit, we're making a change to all supers in the final shape. While different types of supers will have different passive recharge times, all supers will now use the same damage-based rechargers. Okay. This means that no matter what super you have equipped, dealing a specific amount of damage to a specific enemy type will result, I can't read, I'm too excited, in the same amount of super energy gained, whereas previously that value could vary by 30%. This effectively increases the real-world uptime of our roaming supers in the slowest recharge tier and reduces the uptime of our fastest recharging burst supers. Okay. I think that's a dub. I think that is a dub. I really wish we had very specific numbers for like before and after in terms of like, hey, if you shot, X enemy types, you would get your super back in Y minutes and seconds, right? And then here's what it'll look like after. Oh man, very interesting. These are all interesting changes. I know a lot of people probably aren't going to be happy about them. I think we were due for a shakeup. I'll let those changes marinate a little bit more. I think these are good changes overall. Okay, Arc. In general, Arc Strider has found a solid niche in mid-level PvE content, but struggles to execute its gameplay loop at our highest tier of challenge. With a new super and aspect on the way, we're not making any large changes to the kit with this release, but we plan to evaluate how it's feeling with the full package as we go. For now, we've focused on adding keyword utility to Arc Staff and increasing the uptime of Disorienting Blow to make it a stronger choice in comparison to Combination Blow. Okay. We're also increasing players' ability to survive when using Tempest Strike, aka the cool guy melee, which now grants a short duration of PvE damage resist. Interesting. Arc Staff, heavy palm strike attacks and heavy air slam blinds enemies. Damn. That heavy palm strike is fucking goated. I love that attack. Disorienting blow, decreased base cooldown time from 100 to 90 seconds. It's pretty small, but okay. Tempest Strike added additional DR versus PvE combatants when activated, lingering for a short duration after the attack. I wish they would tell us how much, right? How much DR and for how long? And for how long does it linger after the attack? Why is Bungie so goddamn secretive with the numbers? Sometimes they give us like an overabundance of information and math and numbers. And other times they're like, you figure it out. You figure it out. It's just kind of weird. Inconsistent. We'll do testing. Don't worry. We've made a corresponding change to Stormcaller's Lightning Surge in the same vein, with more survivability when you aggressively teleport into a group of enemies. We've also increased the proximity detonation volume. We call this an arming shape. For Ball Lightning, okay, fixing an issue where the projectile would pass above a target that it could damage but failed to detonate. That is really annoying when that happens. Lightning Surge added additional DR versus PvE combatants when activated, lingering for a short duration after the attack. Would love to know the numbers on those. Ball Lightning increased the final arming shape size by 30%, fixed an issue where the arming shape was offset upward, higher than the maximum damage range of the projectile's detonation. Chain Lightning has been a staple of the Stormcaller identity since inception as an upgrade to the Thunderstrike melee in the original Destiny. With the introduction of Jolt in Season of Plunder and the propagation across the sandbox, however, it started to feel a bit left behind. Ooh! We're increasing the damage dealt by its chains by 100% to help increase effectiveness against crowds of enemies and make it feel like a worthier option in comparison to Warlock's many ranged melees. Chain Lightning increased secondary chain projectile base damage from 27 to 54. Okay. All right. Still feel like I lean towards Solar a bit more with the Warlock kit in general because it offers like everything I need. You know, Maggie, I agree with that statement. These are good changes. It's still like Arc for Warlock for me. It's like a little bit kind of like the forgotten child, right? It's kind of like, yeah, you're cute, but like Solar's over here, right? Okay. And no changes to Chaos Reach or anything? Wow. Sheesh. Okay. Titan, like with the Tempest Strike for Hunters and Lightning Surge change for Warlocks, we're implementing the same extra damage resist versus PvE combatants during the Thunderclap windup, oh hell yeah, to help Titans stand their ground during a full charge. However, because Thunderclap doesn't allow Titans to move until the strike is finished, we're increasing both the minimum and maximum damage, oh yeah dude, output to help offset the trade-off in mobility against PvE combatants. Hell yeah. We're also increasing the maximum damage output versus players to ensure that a fully charged Thunderclap can overcome player damage resist or overshield. Okay. Thunderclap added additional DR versus PvE combatants when activated, lingering for a short duration after the attack. Please give numbers. Increased minimum damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. Increased maximum damage versus PvE combatants by 33%. That's so cool, dude. I love Thunderclap. Oh, man. Any opportunity to buff Thunderclap in any way. I'm not even a fucking Titan main. I'm not even a Titan main. But, oh, that'll be really fun. Okay, that's just silly. That's just silly good fun, dude. Increased maximum damage versus enemy players by 14%. Okay, great. Meaning probably able to lock up the kill like significantly earlier, right? In the windup. Okay, depending on their health. It's been difficult for us to find a solid place for the knockout aspect. That aspect is really good in PvP. In part, this is due to the harsh difference in the value of unstunning passive health regeneration in different combat environments. Knockout's passive health regen is very quick at max recovery, but can be interrupted. Generally, in PvP encounters, players are dramatically less likely to take chip damage, after resolution of an engagement, resulting in much more health recovery than we think is comfortable. Yeah, dude, knockout in PvP is still really good. I play Void Titan in Trials a lot because it's the fucking meta, and you almost have to. But knockout, so enjoyable. And strong. By contrast, with the increased number of enemies in PvE encounters, knockout's passive healing can feel ineffectual because there are many sources of incoming damage in a given moment. To help address this, we're reworking the way knockout's healing works altogether. Rather than unstunning passive regeneration, defeating enemies with a melee attack now grants a chunk of health in a very, very short window, 0.1 second. And that chunk of health increases based on the type of target you defeat. We're also increasing the bonus damage granted to powered melee attacks versus PvE combatants while knockout is active. Knockout. Increased bonus damage granted to powered melee attacks versus PvE combatants from 25% to 50%. Reworked healing behavior. Okay. No longer unstuns health regen on melee defeats. Now instantly grants a chunk of health that scales with the type of target defeated. Player health, 30 points. Minor combatant health, 50 health. Major combatant, 75. Champion, 100. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Gonna have to think about that one for a minute. With update 6.3.0.5 in January 23, we implemented a change to drastically reduce the travel speed of Touch of Thunder's Storm Grenade upgrade to reduce its potency across the board, with a specific focus on the Crucible. We're not in love with how that's shaken out in PvE game mode, so we're making a targeted change to increase its speed only when tracking PvE combatants. This will help it better roam across an encounter space and catch multiple targets. Touch of Thunder, Storm Grenade. Increase tracking travel speed when targeting PvE combatants by between 0.5 and 1 meters per second, increasing with the storm's lifetime. Okay. These changes, I understand. Nothing too wild. Keeping with Touch of Thunder, Lightning Grenade upgrade is currently a bit too spicy. Oh man, I like that. So we're making a change here to curb the amount of immediate burst damage it can deal, especially outside of its actual effective detonation range. Following this change, Lightning Grenade will apply its jolt immediately after the initial damage occurs, preventing the jolt from zapping its chain lightning instantly on creation. Touch of Thunder Lightning Grenade now applies jolt after the first damage event rather than prior. Okay, that's not too wild of a change. Probably the most significant change there to me would be knockout. Might be a little different for you if you are an Arc Titan main. Let me know in the chat how you feel about the changes specifically to knockout and Arc Titan. I'm curious to know. Gonna keep reading. We have a lot left to go. Arc Grenade. Storm Grenade is also getting a bit of a boost outside of the Touch of Thunder variant. We're increasing the base version's damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. Skip Grenade is getting a 15% boost in PvE damage, and we're also increasing Arc Bolt Grenade's damage versus PvE combatants by 15%. Give it a shot on Prismatic Hunter and let us know how it's feeling. Okay. Storm, PvE damage 20%. Touch of Thunder variant damage unchanged. Okay. Increased damage with Skip for 15. Okay, that's cool. I'm more excited about that for Prismatic than I am for Arc. Again, I don't play a lot of Arc. I don't play a lot of Arc builds. I do like Arc Hunter in PvE. That's kind of it. Yeah. We keep reading. Arc Fragments. Wrapping up Arc, we're making some quality of life changes to our Arc Fragment suite. Spark of Recharge is one of the few sources of direct ability energy regeneration outside of Ionic Traces in the Arc subclass kit, and we feel it's currently too difficult to make use of. So while it will still initially activate when becoming critically wounded, we're extending the duration of its benefits until the player returns to full health, rather than deactivating as soon as the player has any shields. Okay. Spark of Recharge. Ability regeneration bonus now persists until the player returns to full shields rather than deactivating as soon as shields begin to recharge. Spark of Beacons has always been relatively popular and has spiked in usage with the release of Indebted Kindness. What a great gun. We don't mind the spike and are extending Spark of Beacons activation triggers to include arc power weapons as well. Huh. Time to break out the Thunderlord. Cursed. Remove from article. Spark of Beacons now also triggers on defeating targets with arc power ammo weapons while amplified. You heard Bungie, chat. Thunderlord is now meta across the board. Dismantle your crafted Apex rocket launchers. Break out that Thunderlord. Classic. Finally, for Spark of Frequency, we're bringing back just a hint of the old frontal assault striker talent. Spark of Frequency now also grants 15 weapon stability on empowered melee hit, in addition to the reload benefit. Okay. Solar. For Solar, in addition to our well changes detailed above, we're making targeted improvements to abilities that are included with Prismatic, as well as making some improvements to standalone abilities that needed some love. Okay, Hunter, for the gunslinger friends out there, we're taking a look at Lightweight Knife, which has struggled to find an identity for itself. True. Our overall goal, I'll hold my throwing knife while we read this, for the ability is to provide a low barrier to entry melee with a payoff for high skill usage. However, it's not currently hitting our fantasy bar. With the release of the final shape, this melee is getting a small rework. It now has 2 melee charges by default and can be thrown back to back dramatically faster. Okay. What about with Ophidia? Do you get 3? Lightweight Knife now has 2 melee charges by default. Increased throw animation speed. That'd be really fun if you get 3. Wah, wah, wah. Increased throw animation speed by 33%. Reduced suppression time between throws, so both knives can be thrown very quick back to back. Note, the additional melee charge does not stack with Ophidia. They read my mind. Due to the exotic's unique energy recharge behavior. Got it. We'll be monitoring this and evaluating how things are playing once things go live. Okay. Maybe they'll change it in the future. To support this, we're also updating Knock 'em Down's internal cooldown on melee refund. This was initially intended to prevent situations where Knife Trick could refund many charges at once, but with the Lightweight Knife update, we felt it was important to enable a faster cadence of potential refunds. Knock 'em Down. Reduced internal cooldown on throwing knife. Refund from 1 second to 0.2 seconds. Sheesh. Okay, great. Some raid teams have a... Fangs, are you here? Fangs, are you in the chat? Where's Fangs? Here you go. Some raid teams have a strategy of hunters fully stacking Golden Gun marksmen to instantly refund each other's supers with orbs of power created on precision hit in combination with the additional super energy granted on orb pickup by Star Eater scales. Who would do that? Who would do such a strategy to make encounters easier? That's fucked up. If you do that, you're just fucked up. You're cheating the game, bro. It's a really good strategy. Okay, where was I? While we appreciate this kind of build crafting ingenuity, the level of super chaining isn't very healthy. That is true for the game. It's really not. I was wondering if they would fix this. Therefore, we're reducing the strength of the orbs created by Golden Gun Marksman's precision hit perk and making targeted adjustments to the specific combination noted above. Okay, Golden Gun, Marksman. Reduced strength of orbs of power created on precision hit as follows. Okay, when hitting a non-boss, reduced strength from 0.75 to 0.5 of a normal super orb of power. When hitting boss enemies, reduced strength from 0.75 to 0.4. Okay. When hitting boss enemies while Star Eater is equipped, reduced strength from 0.75 times to 0.35 of a normal super orb of power. Yeah, Fangs, it's been around for a while. Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if we can do it with 5 hunters instead of 4. Nah, it's probably dead. Well, time to help more people finish Pantheon with that before the final shape. Woo! Actually, I mean, Pantheon going away with the final shape anyway. That'd be really funny if there was an addendum like, this change is happening today. Fuck your Pantheon clear. All right, moving on. Titan. For our Sunbreakers, we're taking a look at Consecration. We made improvements to Consecration in update 7.3.5 that landed pretty well. But there goes the Hunter throwing knife. But with its inclusion in Prismatic, we wanted to make sure Consecration could stand on its own without relying on Roaring Flames. We also wanted it to have some interesting interactions with other Prismatic Titan abilities. As a result, we've increased the damage of ignitions caused by Consecration versus PvE combatants. Ooh, do tell. Cool guy is foaming at the mouth right now. Versus PvE combatants and further increased consistency against floating targets. You still need a different tool to take down a pesky Grim, but a Servitor or Shank should cause less frustration. Wow. Dude. Not the change I was expecting to Consecration. Consecration, if you haven't used it in a while, I recommend checking it out. It's pretty fucking fire. No pun intended. Slam Attack can now shatter stasis crystals. Ignitions created by Consecration deal 20% additional damage. That's big. So PvE combatants fixed an issue where Consecration Slam Attack was sometimes unable to damage floating combatants while they were grounded. Fixed an issue where Consecration intended PvE damage resist was not being applied. Those are great changes. I'm gonna have to make an updated Solar Titan build. I already love Solar Titan. Okay. Another Sunbreaker ability featured on the Prismatic Titan is Hammer of Soul, which we feel is too reliant on the additional damage granted from the sunspots created by Soul Invictus. We're making a change to Hammer of Soul that only affects the super when Soul Invictus isn't equipped. This will increase the number of shrapnel submunitions, I can read, created on impact based on the primary projectile's lifetime and the damage those submunitions deal. Hammer of Soul. Increased projectile submunition count when Soul Invictus is not equipped as follows. If the projectile detonates within the first 0.7 seconds of a lifetime, it now creates 4 shrapnel submunitions, up from 3. If the projectile detonates after, so if it goes further, it now creates 6, up from 5. Okay, when Soul Invictus is equipped, only 3 shrapnel submunitions are created regardless of flight time. Okay, understood. They're talking about the little, you know what I'm talking about. Shrapnel now deals additional damage when Soul Invictus is not equipped, with the damage increasing after the first 0.7 seconds of the projectile's lifetime. Swarm Grenade. Finally, a few weeks ago, we revealed the abilities coming with each Prismatic subclass, and some hunters raised an eyebrow at the inclusion of the Swarm Grenade. We agree. So we have boosted Swarm Grenade's ease of use and PvE damage output to make sure it shines in that kit. Swarm Grenade. Increased tracking shape size from 4 to 6 meters. Increased linear duration from 7 to 8 seconds to 10 to 11. Increased damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. Void. Oh boy. Hunter. Night Stalkers are generally in a pretty strong place, as seen by their high popularity in Onslaught. True story. A large portion of that is driven by the potency of Shadow Shot and its ability to lock down hordes of incoming enemies and not necessarily its neutral game offering, so we're making a few changes to help shore up that side. With the release of Void 3.0, we removed the corrosive smoke melee ability in favor of Snare Bomb, leaning further into the trap-laying trickster fantasy. We want to walk that back a little bit and are baking in small escalating damage over time to the Snare Bomb's now longer smoke volume. This will help Night Stalkers capitalize on an incapacitated enemy caught in their trap. These changes also apply to the smoke volume created by Trapper's Ambush. Ooh. Snare Bomb. Increased linger duration of smoke after detonation from 3 to 5 seconds. Now applies small damage over time to enemies in the smoke, which increases in strength the longer they remain in the smoke. Huh, okay. Trapper's Ambush. Increased linger duration of the smoke after detonation from 4.5 to 6 seconds. Now applies snare bombs damage over time to enemies caught in the smoke. Okay. Fixed an issue where Trapper's Ambush smoke effects could be obstructed by ground geometry. Thank the fucking Lord on that one. We're also updating Stylish Executioner to allow its weaken effect to be... let me reread that. We're updating Stylish Executioner to allow its weaken effect, while active, to be applied by glaive melees as well. Stylish Executioner. Weaken effect can now be applied by glaive melee attacks. Oh. Okay. That is interesting. Shout out to like the 14 glaive mains out there for that change. Okay. These are interesting changes to smoke, for sure. I'll have to feel those out. Maybe they'll be fun enough where I'm actually tempted to maybe put on a glaive when I play Hunter in PvE. I don't know. I don't use a ton of glaive, you know? I don't know. Titan, here we go. For Sentinels, we focused on a large consistency pass for the shield throw melee attack. While we want this to feel weighty and impactful, giggity, our previous passes haven't done enough to make it able to deal with groups of minor combatants. We're taking a much stronger swing here, resulting in a much larger improvement to consistency. Full-on Captain America fantasy, here we come. We're also increasing its PvE damage to help ensure that any combatants who are hit have a meaningful dent left in them. Okay, shield throw. Increased maximum bounce count from 4 to 5. Increased maximum lifetime from 3 to 4 seconds. Interesting. Now increases its tracking shape, size, and strength after each bounce, increasing its ability to consistently find a new target. Slightly increased gravity and decreased thrust speed, giggity, with each bounce. PvE damage increased by 20%. All right. Shit, that's not too bad. That's kind of cool, actually. We're also making a small change to Offensive Bulwark. This is partially a preventative fix to stop players from getting into a bad timer state, similar to the Ember of Empyrean issue resolved earlier in the season. I see. So we're making a quality of life change to offset that thing. Okay, Offensive Bulwark can now only extend Void Overshield timer to its normal maximum duration to prevent an issue where players could get into a bad timer state. Now regenerates a small portion of your active Void Overshield with each melee defeat. Okay. That's it for Titan? Shit, all right. Warlock. Finally, our Void Walkers are getting a number of improvements. I play so little. I used to be a Void Walker main, which is wild to think about how long it's been since I've cared about anything related to Void Warlock. Let's keep reading. Starting with Chaos Accelerant. Its overcharged magnetic grenade has fallen by the wayside since its inception as handheld supernova with Forsaken. To help remedy, we're increasing the damage output and knockback capability as well as uptime. Chaos Accelerant Charged Magnetic Grenade. Increased maximum intensity of physics knockback by 10%. Increased damage versus PvE combatants by 20%. Okay. Now passively decreases your magnetic grenade's cooldown by 10% while Chaos Accelerant is equipped. Okay. I'd be down to try that out. That could be fun. See a big bad, like a mini boss or a champion or some bullshit. Boom. Charge up that magnetic grenade. Fuck you. Okay, from the first minute of your experience with Prismatic, Pocket Singularity will be available to equip and use. Ooh. A piece of feedback we've heard for a while is that Pocket Singularity struggles in high-level PvE content, and we agree. True. The only time I've used Pocket Singularity in recent memory is when we did Pantheon the other day, and I used the Void Melee to knock a Tormentor off a cliff. That is the only viable use of that fucking melee ability. Granted, It's pretty good use, but not exactly, you know, widely popular across the board. Pocket Singularity. Increased detonation damage versus PvE combatants by 50%. It's a big number. Okay. All right. You have my attention. Finally, we're taking a look at Nova Bomb to improve overall damage output without the need of a super boosting exotic. For Cataclysm, we are increasing the maximum secondary seeker count and making it more consistent. And for Vortex Nova Bomb, we're increasing the lifetime of the lingering damage over time volume. Nova Bomb variant. Cataclysm variant. Increased seeker count from 4 to 6. Okay. Fixed an issue where seekers could impact the environment on creation. Sure. Vortex. Increased vortex linger duration from 7 to 10 seconds. I wonder how much extra damage that is. Someone's texting me. Fixed an issue where the linger visual effects were shutting off early. Okay. Okay. I can't believe we got a double Nova Bomb buff. I feel like they could have gone a little harder here, but I'm still interested. Strand. Last up is Strand, which has remained a popular pick since introduction with Lightfall. Our focus for Strand with this balance patch is primarily to bring in outliers at both the top and very bottom ends of the spectrum, rather than the larger reworks we've seen with the other damage types. As we evaluate how these changes are feeling and how the Strand abilities included with Prismatic are playing, we'll be taking another look in the future. Threat of Warding. Before we get into individual subclasses, the first outlier we'd like to address is the Thread of Warding Fragment. While we appreciate the defensive value it provides by granting Woven Mail, oh boy, it is currently too potent. It overshadows the role of Berserkers into the Fray aspect of being the best source of Woven Mail for your fire team. Thread of Warding. Reduced Woven Mail duration on Orb of Power pickup from 10 to 5 seconds. That is significant. That's still pretty good. It's still pretty good. Like, think of how easy it is to make an Orb of Power. It's pretty easy to make an Orb of Power. I don't know. I don't think that's completely dead. That's pretty big change, though, from 10 to 5. 10 seconds is way long. Way long. Yeah, but that's okay. I get it. Every Thread of Warding is super fucking good. I get it. I'm not happy about it, but I get it. Hunter, Thread Runners and Snaring Slam has remained popular. It's a fun ability. And has seen a small bump in PvE popularity following the increased uptime post-update 7.3.5. However, it is currently too powerful against other players. Somebody check on Frostbolt. With a detonation radius that is very difficult for victims to understand, so we are reducing overall area of effect versus players. Womp womp. Ensnaring Slam. Detonation volume versus enemy players is now a cylinder with a 6.5 meter radius rather than a sphere with an 8 meter radius. Okay, so we're going from this to this, right? Little phallic shit. Don't worry about it. Okay. That is a noticeable change for PvP Strand mains. I am sorry. I feel your pain. Interesting to know that the current radius is a sphere. I thought it was always a cylinder. This results in fewer instances of victims correctly attempting to counterplay by jumping but being caught in the Ensnaring Slam detonation high up in the air. You know what? That makes sense. Similarly, Threaded Spike is a little too potent against enemy players with very forgiving tracking and high damage for its ease of use, so we're making a small reduction in its damage versus enemy players. Okay. We're also changing the catch mechanic. So that catching your Threaded Spike manually no longer breaks invisibility. Oh, interesting. We wanted to prevent this happening on Prismatic Hunter in combination, that's a good call, with Stylish Executioner. That would be bad if it took you out of, yeah, that'd be bad for Prismatic. Threaded Spike. Reduce damage versus enemy players from 79 to 70. Catching your Threaded Spike no longer breaks invisibility. They call that a burf right there. The old buff nerf combo. Warlock. For Broodweavers, our focus for the update is Weaver's Call. I fucking love Weaver's Call. One major piece of feedback is that threadling uptime for Brood Weavers doesn't match up to the fantasy. With Rift cooldown times being relatively long to match the combat utility of the heal or damage increase, Weaver's Call could feel too spiky in its output with a lot of downtime. We agree with that feedback. Don't know why I couldn't read that. And are updating Weaver's Call to allow it to generate perched threadlings through normal gameplay, namely by defeating targets with any source of strand damage. Okay, shit. Weaver's Call added new behavior. Defeating a target with strand damage now has a chance to generate a perched threadling with a higher chance of generation from defeating more powerful targets. That's good. That way I don't even really have to, like, think about it. I don't even have to think about it. Great. Awesome. Let's see. This damage can be from any source, including other threadlings. I don't think that's too insane of a change. I think that's just a fun, quality of life change. Sorry. DM'd you by accident, Anno. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I dig that. I dig that very much. That's kind of fun. Okay, great. Grapple tangles and melee. Before we get into Berserker, let's take a pit stop and talk about grapple tangles and grapple melee. When we initially built the grapple tangle as part of the Widow's Silk aspect, we intended for it to be used primarily as a traversal tool, allowing hunters to give their fire team a fast grapple path through combat spaces. Oh boy. However, that intention was quickly subverted, and we now see grapple tangles primarily used to fuel an infinite number of high output grapple melees, particularly on Berserker. Oh, Saltagreppo is beginning to sweat right now. We want to keep some degree of freedom in how grapple tangles are used, but we don't believe that using a single attack back-to-back like that is particularly interesting or healthy gameplay. So we're taking a few steps to address it. I mean, who didn't see this coming, right? Who didn't see this coming? How many clips can Bungie devs watch of people soloing raid and dungeon bosses by, like, being like, set up a grapple point and being like, infinite melee? It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's fun, but I get it. Like, it's pretty goddamn strong if you know what you're doing. Okay, let's read. Grapple tangles no longer fully refresh their duration when grappled to. Understandable. Now increase their duration by a maximum of 5 seconds per grapple, reducing to a maximum of 1 second added after 5 consecutive grapples to the same grapple tangle. That makes sense. I feel like a lot of people are not going to be happy about that, but I get it. I get it. They'll find a new broken thing to do. Additionally, grapple melees will no longer be able to be used after firing your weapon. What? Yeah, that makes sense. Primarily intended to reduce the number of difficult to understand grapple melee deaths in the Crucible, where players can grapple towards you, fire a single hand cannon shot, and then follow up with a grapple melee for a very fast cleanup. But it also reduces the number of melee damage stacking sources, which can spiral out of control very quickly, that are easily achievable with grapple melees by removing 1-2 punch from the equation. Woof. A lot of Strand mains are going to not be happy about a lot of that. A lot of that. I get it. Totally get it. I get why they're doing it. You're gonna hear a lot of feedback from Strand players. Moving on. Titan, looping back to Berserker. While we're happy with how the fantasy has landed, there are a few balanced outliers that we want to address to make sure that it's not dramatically out of band with other subclasses. Our changes here are relatively small and targeted at specific issues, and our goal is that the overall fantasy and gameplay style of the subclass remains intact throughout. Into the Fray offers a high degree of survivability and melee ability uptime. We're generally okay with the survivability, as it's critical to the fantasy of the subclass, but in combination with the accelerating passive regeneration of Frenzied Blade as charges accumulate, The melee ability regeneration it provides is slightly too high, so we're bringing it down a little bit. Man, the fucking hits keep coming. And they don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming. Into the fray. Reduced melee energy regeneration scaler from 4 to 3 PvE activities. Unchanged in PvP. When we released update 7.3.0 last December, Banner of War, oh boy, was still new. We knew this was coming, right? We knew. And we didn't have much time to holistically... Bless you? Yo, you're good. I was like, the fuck was that? To holistically evaluate its potency. Now that we've had more time to sit with it, we had a few targeted changes to make. Having a relatively easy upkeep bonus fits well with the Berserker playstyle, but its lengthy duration results in too little time pressure to fit the high action per minute gameplay loop. So we're reducing the maximum timer length by 20%. Above, we mentioned that melee damage stacking can quickly spiral out of control, and Banner of War is a good example of the result. When paired with something like the newly reworked Worm God Caress or the evergreen staple Synthoceps, Banner of War's relatively modest melee damage boost becomes a very large force multiplier for the melee damage boost granted by those exotics. That isn't really healthy long term. We still want Banner to provide value to the player when using these exotics as they're a natural pairing, but we are implementing diminishing returns when either are active. I see. Banner of War, reduced maximum timer from 30 seconds to 24 seconds. Okay. Melee, glaive melee, and super damage bonus now have diminishing returns with Syntho as follows. Oh boy. Melee bonuses decreased from 1.4 to 1.15. Glaive melee bonus decreased from 1.25 to 1.125. Super bonus decreased from 1.4 to 1.2. Melee and glaive melee damage bonuses now have diminishing returns with Worm God Caress 2. Shit. Melee bonuses decreased from 1.4 to 1.1 based on stack count. Glaive melee bonuses decreased from 1.4 to 1.05 based on stack count. Finally, for Frenzied Blade, we've identified an issue where the melee lunge target point was being offset too far forward from the actual lunge target, resulting in some odd behavior when using Frenzied Blade at very close ranges. Frenzied Blade reduced the forward offset for melee lunge target point from 0.4 to 0.18. Wow. Wow. Before I read that final paragraph, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. These are, I mean, like, yeah, they do. I understand why they're making it. Strand Titan mains are going to be mad, for sure. Right when I read the part at that opening paragraph, where it was like, where is it? Yeah, we're trying to bring in outliers of both the top and the bottom ends of the spectrum. It's like, oh boy, oh boy. If you don't know, like a well-performing high, like a 0.1% PvE player on Strand Titan with the right loadout can just completely clown so many encounters and high-level enemies in the game. It's kind of wild. Pretty sure many of them knew that this day was coming, right? They knew this day was coming. I'm sure this will be a lot for those players to get used to, but I'm always very confident that the Destiny player base as a whole is really adaptive and very clever, and they will find, other things to go fully ham with. I have no doubt at all that there will be new crazy cheese in the final shape. Yeah, Maggie, they're probably a lot of the changes we've seen today were to make things better for Prismatic. New kid on the block coming soon in June. I understand. A lot of these changes are very interesting. I'm going to have to let a lot of them marinate. I know that a lot of people are really going to be pissed about the well and bubble changes. I think that it's time for a shakeup. I mean, look, man, I'm a Warlock main. You have to admit that on some degree, it gets a little boring. Like, you get to damage phase, okay, drop the well. Everybody stand in the well, spam rocket launchers. I'm ready for a shakeup. If it's too shitty of a change. If it's too shitty of a change, I'm sure they'll either not revert it, but they'll make it more in line so it feels less good. Either way, a lot of shakeups coming for the final shape. A lot of shakeups. There's a lot to take in. Big article. And come back to chat tomorrow for the Thursday article, because this is a big one split into 2 articles. Anyway, conclusion. Whew. That's everything we have for now. We're extremely excited to see how the next era of the D2 sandbox unfolds. Yeah, me too. After the launch of the final shape, and we'll be monitoring the impact of these changes. As always, keep the feedback coming, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow.